1. The compound effect in action. You know that expression, slow and steady wins the race. Ever heard the story of the tortoise and the hare? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the tortoise. Give me enough time, and I will beat virtually anybody, anytime, in any competition. Why? Not because I'm the best or the smartest or the fastest. I'll win because of the positive habits I've developed and because of the consistency I use in applying those habits. I'm the world's biggest believer in consistency. I'm living proof that it's the ultimate key to success, yet it's one of the biggest pitfalls for people struggling to achieve. Most people don't know how to sustain it. Ils don't. I have my father to thank for that. In essence, he was my first coach for igniting the power of the compound effect. My parents divorced when I was 18 months old, and my dad raised me as a single father. He wasn't exactly the soft, nurturing type. He was a former university football coach, and he hardwired me for achievement. Thanks to Dad, wake-up calls were at 6 o'clock every morning, not by a loving tap on the shoulder or even the sound of a radio alarm. No, I was awakened each morning by the repetitious pile-driving sound of iron pounding on the concrete floor of our garage, situated next to my bedroom. It was like waking up 12 feet from a construction zone. He'd painted a huge no pain, no gain sign on the wall of the garage, which he stared at while he did countless old-school strongman deadlifts, power cleans, lunges, and squats. Rain, sleet, or shine, Dad was out there in his shorts and tattered sweatshirt. He never missed a day. You could set your watch by his routine. I had more chores than a housekeeper and gardener put together. Upon returning from school, there was always a list of instructions to greet me. Pull weeds, rake leaves, sweep the garage, dust, vacuum, do the dishes, you name it. And getting behind in school wasn't tolerated. That's just the way it was. Dad was the original no excuses guy. We weren't ever allowed to stay home from school sick unless we were actually puking, bleeding, or showing bone. The term showing bone came from his coaching days. His players knew they weren't allowed to come out of the game unless they were seriously injured. One time his quarterback asked to be pulled out of the game. Dad said, "Not unless you're showing bone." The quarterback pulled back his shoulder pads, and sure enough, his collarbone was showing. Only then was he allowed to come off the field. One of Dad's core philosophies was, it doesn't matter how smart you are or aren't, you need to make up in hard work what you lack in experience, skill, intelligence, or innate ability. If your competitor is smarter, more talented, or experienced, you just need to work 3 or 4 times as hard. You can still beat them. No matter what the challenge, he taught me to make up in hard work for wherever I might be disadvantaged. Miss free throws of the game? Do 1,000 free throws every day for a month. Not good at dribbling with your left hand? Tie your right hand behind your back and dribble 3 hours a day. Behind your math? Hunker down, hire a tutor, and work like hell all summer until you get it. No excuses. If you aren't good at something, work harder, work smarter. He walked his talk, too. Dad went from being a football coach to a top salesperson. From there, he became the boss and ultimately went on to own his own company. But I wasn't given loads of instruction. From the beginning, Dad let us figure it out. He was all about taking personal responsibility. He didn't hammer on us every night about homework. We just had to show up with the results. And when you did, you were celebrated. If we got good grades, Dad took us to Pring's, an ice cream parlor where you could get these king banana splits, 6 scoops of ice cream, and all the fixings. Many times my siblings didn't fare as well in school, so they didn't get to go. Getting to go was a big deal, so you worked your butt off to win the trip. Dad's discipline served as an example for me. Dad was my idol, and I wanted him to be proud of me. I also lived in fear of disappointing him. One of his philosophies is, be the guy who says no. It's no great achievement to go along with the crowd. Be the unusual guy, the extraordinary guy. That's why I never did drugs. He never harped on me about it, but I didn't want to be that guy who just went along because everyone else was doing it. And I didn't want to let Dad down. Thanks to Dad, By age 12, I'd mastered a schedule worthy of the most efficient CEO. Sometimes I griped and moaned. I was a kid, but even then I secretly liked knowing that I had an edge over my classmates. Dad gave me a serious head start on the discipline and mentality it takes to be dedicated and responsible to achieve whatever I set out to achieve. It's no accident that the tagline of Success magazine is What Achievers Read. Today, Dad and I joke about what an addictive overachiever he trained me to be. At 18, I was making a six-figure income in my own business. By age 20, I owned my own home in an upscale neighborhood. By age 24, my income grew to more than $1 million a year. And by age 27, I was officially a self-made millionaire with a business that brought in more than $50 million in revenue. That just about brings us to the present day, because I'm not yet 40, but I have enough money and assets to last my family the rest of my life. There are lots of ways to screw up a kid, Dad says. At least my way was a pretty good one. You seem to have done pretty well. So, while I admit that I've had to practice sitting on my hands and being present in the moment, or chilling out peacefully in a beach chair from time to time, without taking a pile of business books or self-improvement CDs with me, I'm grateful for the success skills I learned from my dad and my other mentors along the way. The compound effect reveals the secret behind my success. I'm a true believer in the compound effect because Dad made sure that I lived it each and every day until I couldn't live any other way if I tried. But if you're like most people, you're not a true believer. There are lots of perfectly understandable reasons why. You haven't had the same coaching and example showing you what to do. You haven't experienced the payoff of the compound effect. As a society, we have been deceived. We've been hypnotized by commercial marketing, which convinces you of problems you don't have and sells you on the idea of insta-fixes to cure them. We've been socialized to believe in the fairy tale endings found in movies and novels. We've lost sight of the good, old-fashioned value of hard and consistent work. Let's examine these hurdles one by one. You haven't experienced the payoff of the compound effect. The compound effect is the principle of reaping huge rewards from a series of small, smart choices. What's most interesting about this process to me is that even though the results are massive, the steps in the moment don't feel significant. Whether you're using this strategy for improving your health, relationships, finances, or anything else for that matter, the changes are so subtle, they're almost imperceptible. These small changes offer little or no immediate result, no big win, no obvious "I told you so" payoff. So why bother? Most people get tripped up by the simplicity of the compound effect. For instance, they quit after the 8th day of running because they're still overweight. Or they stop practicing the piano after 6 months because they haven't mastered anything other than chopsticks. Or they stop making contributions to their IRA after a few years because they could use the cash, and it doesn't seem to be adding up to much anyway. What they don't realize is that these small, seemingly insignificant steps completed consistently over time will create a radical difference. Let me give you a few detailed examples. Small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals radical difference. The magic penny. If you were given a choice between taking $3 million in cash this very instant and a single penny that doubles in value every day for 31 days, which would you choose? If you've heard this before, you know the penny gambit is the choice you should make. You know it's the course that will lead to greater wealth. Yet why is it so hard to believe choosing the penny will result in more money in the end? Because it takes so much longer to see the payoff. Let's take a closer look. Let's say you take the cold, hard cash, and your friend goes the penny route. On day 5, your friend has 16 cents. You, however, have $3 million. On day 10, it's $5.12 versus your big bucks. How do you think your friend is feeling about her decision? You're spending your millions, enjoying the heck out of it, and loving your choice. After 20 full days, with only 11 days left, Penny Lane has only $5,243. How is she feeling about herself at this point? For all her sacrifice and positive behavior, she has barely more than $5,000. You, however, have $3 million. Then the invisible magic of the compound effect starts to become visible. The same small mathematical growth improvement each day makes the compounded penny worth $10,737,418.24 on day 31, more than 3 times your $3 million. In this example, we see why consistency over time is so important. On day 29, you've got your $3 million. Penny Lane has around $2.70 million. It isn't until day 30 of this 31-day race that she pulls ahead with $5.30 million. And it isn't until the very last day of this month-long ultramarathon that your friend blows you out of the water. She ends up with $10,737,418.24 to your $3 million. Very few things are as impressive as the magic of compounding pennies. Amazingly, this force is equally powerful in every area of your life. Here's another example. 3 friends. Let's take 3 buddies who all grew up together. They live in the same neighborhood with very similar sensibilities. Each makes around $50,000 a year. They're all married and have average health and body weight, plus a little bit of that dreaded marriage flab. Friend number 1, let's call him Larry, plods along doing as he's always done. He's happy, or so he thinks, but complains occasionally that nothing ever changes. Friend number 2, Scott, starts making some small, seemingly inconsequential, positive changes. He begins reading 10 pages of a good book per day and listening to 30 minutes of something instructional or inspirational on his commute to work. Scott wants to see changes in his life, but doesn't want to make a fuss over it. He recently read an interview with Dr. Mehmet Oz in Success magazine and chose one idea from the article to implement in his life. He's going to cut 125 calories from his diet every day. No big deal. We're talking maybe a cup of cereal less, trading that can of soda for a bottle of seltzer, switching from mayo to mustard on his sandwich. Doable. He's also started walking a couple thousand extra steps per day, less than a mile. No grand acts of bravery or effort. Stuff anyone could do, but Scott is determined to stick with. These choices, knowing that even though they're simple, he could also easily be tempted to abandon them. Friend number 3, Brad, makes a few poor choices. He recently bought a new big screen TV so he can watch more of his favorite programs. He's been trying out the recipes he's seen on the Food Channel. The cheesy casseroles and desserts are his favorites. Oh, and he installed a bar in his family room and added 1 alcoholic drink per week to his diet. Nothing crazy. Brad just wants to have a little more fun. At the end of 5 months, no perceivable differences exist among Larry, Scott, or Brad. Scott continues to read a little bit every night and listen to audios during his commute. Brad is enjoying life and doing less. Larry keeps doing as he always has. Even though each man has his own pattern of behavior, 5 months isn't long enough to see any real decline or improvement in their situations. In fact, if you charted the 3 men's weights, you'd see a rounding error of 0. They'd look exactly equal. At the end of 10 months, we still can't see noticeable changes in any of their lives. It's not until we get to the end of the 18th month that the slightest differences are measurable in these 3 friends' appearances. But at about month 25, we start seeing really measurable, visible differences. At month 27, we see an expansive difference. And by month 31, the change is startling. Brad is now fat while Scott is trim. By simply cutting 125 calories a day, in 31 months, Scott has lost 33 pounds. 31 months equals 940 days, 940 days x 125 calories /day equals 117,500 calories. 117,500 calories divided by 3,500 calories per pound equals 33.5 pounds. Brad ate only 125 more calories more a day in that same time frame and gained 33.5 pounds. Now he weighs 67 pounds more than Scott, but the differences are more significant than weight. Scott's invested almost 1,000 hours reading good books and listening to self-improvement audios. By putting his newly gained knowledge into practice, he's earned a promotion and a raise. Best of all, his marriage is thriving. Brad? He's unhappy at work and his. Marriage is on the rocks. And Larry? Larry is pretty much exactly where he was 2.5 years ago, except now he's a little more bitter about it. The phenomenal power of the compound effect is that simple. The difference between people who employ the compound effect for their benefit compared to their peers who allow the same effect to work against them is almost inconceivable. It looks miraculous, like magic or quantum leaps. After 31 months, or 31 years, the person who uses the positive nature of the compound effect appears to be an overnight success. In reality, his or her profound success was the result of small, smart choices completed consistently over time. The ripple effect. The results in the above example seem dramatic, I know, but it goes even deeper than that. The reality is that even one small change can have a significant impact that causes an unexpected and unintended ripple effect. Let's put one of Brad's bad habits under the microscope: eating rich food more frequently, to better understand how the compound effect can also work in a negative way and can create a ripple effect that impacts your entire life. Brad makes some muffins from a recipe he learned from the Food Channel. He's proud and his family loves it, and it seems to add value all around. He starts making them and other sweets frequently. He loves his own cooking and eats more than his share, but not so much that anyone notices. However, the extra food makes Brad sluggish at night. He wakes up a little groggy, which makes him cranky. The crankiness and sleep deprivation begin to impact his work performance. He's less productive and, as a result, gets discouraging feedback from his boss. By the end of the day, he feels dissatisfied with his job, and his energy level is way down. The commute home seems longer and more stressful than ever. All of this makes him reach for more comfort food. Stress has a way of doing that. The overall lack of energy makes Brad less likely to take walks with his wife like he used to. He just doesn't feel like it. She misses their time together and takes his withdrawal personally. With fewer shared activities with his wife and an absence of fresh air and exercise, Brad's not getting the endorphin release that helped make him feel upbeat and enthusiastic. Because he's not as happy, he starts finding fault with himself and others and stops complimenting his wife. As his own body starts to feel flabby, he feels less self-confident, less attractive, and becomes less romantic. Brad doesn't realize how his lack of energy and affection toward his wife affects her. He just knows that he feels funky. He starts losing himself in late-night TV because it's easy and distracting. Feeling his distance, Brad's wife starts to complain, then becomes needy. When that doesn't work, she emotionally withdraws to protect herself. She's lonely. She pours her energy into her work and spends more time with her girlfriends to fulfill her need for companionship. Men start flirting with her, which makes her feel desirable again. She would never cheat on Brad, but he has a feeling something's wrong. Instead of seeing that his poor choices and behaviors are at the root of their problems, he finds fault with his wife. Believing that the other person is wrong rather than looking inside and doing the work necessary to clean up your mess is basic psychology 101 stuff. In Brad's case, he doesn't know to look inside. They don't offer self-improvement or relationship advice on Top Chef or his favorite crime shows. However, the thought may have occurred to him that if he had read the personal development books his buddy Scott read, he might have learned about ways to change negative habits. Unfortunately for Brad, The small choices he made on a daily basis created a ripple that wreaked havoc on every area of his life. Of course, all that calorie counting and intellectual stimulation has had the opposite effect with Scott, who's now reaping the bounty of positive results. In The Slight Edge, Jeff Olson, another Jim Rohn protege, describes this as the repeating of simple daily disciplines versus the simple errors in judgment. It's that simple. With enough time and consistency, the outcomes become visible. Better yet, they're totally predictable. The compound effect is predictable and measurable. That's great news. Isn't it comforting to know you only need to take a series of tiny steps, consistently, over time, to radically improve your life? Doesn't that sound easier than mustering up some grand show of bravery and heroic strength, only to wear yourself out and have to drum up all that energy again at a later date for another try, which will likely be unsuccessful? I'm exhausted just thinking about it. But that's what people do. We've been conditioned by society to believe in the effectiveness of a great display of massive effort. Heck, it's downright all-American. See Figure 1. Fig 1. The beauty of the compound effect is in its simplicity. Notice how, on the left side of the diagram, the results are intangible, but how powerfully they differ later on. The behaviors all along the way are exactly the same, but the magic of the compound effect eventually kicks in to bring massive differences in results. Success, old school. The most challenging aspect of the compound effect is that we have to keep working away for a while, consistently and efficiently, before we can begin to see the payoff. Our grandparents knew this, though they didn't spend their evenings glued to the TV watching infomercials about how to have thin thighs in 30 days or a real estate kingdom in 6 months. I bet your grandparents worked 6 days a week, from sunup to sundown, using the skills they learned in their youth and repeatedly throughout their entire life. They knew the secret was hard work, discipline, and good habits. It's interesting that wealth tends to skip a generation. Overwhelming abundance often leads to a lackadaisical mentality, which brings about a sedentary lifestyle. Children of the wealthy are especially susceptible. They weren't the ones who developed the discipline and character to create the wealth in the first place. So it makes sense that they may not have the same sense of value for wealth or understand what's necessary to keep it. We frequently see this entitlement mentality in children of royalty, movie stars, and corporate executives, and, to a lesser degree, in children and adults everywhere. As a nation, our entire populace seems to have lost appreciation for the value of a strong work ethic. We've had 2, if not 3, generations of Americans who have known great prosperity, wealth, and ease. Our expectations of what it really takes to create lasting success, things like grit, hard work, and fortitude, aren't alluring and thus have been mostly forgotten. We've lost respect for the strife and struggle of our forefathers. The massive effort they put forth instilled discipline, chiseled their character, and stoked the spirit to brave new frontiers. The truth is, complacency has impacted all great empires, including, but not limited to, the Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and English. Why? Because nothing fails like success. Once dominant empires have failed for this very reason. People get to a certain level of success and get too comfortable. Having experienced extended periods of prosperity, health, and wealth, we become complacent. We stop doing what we did to get us there. We become like the frog in the boiling water that doesn't jump to his freedom because the warming is so incremental and insidious that he doesn't notice he's getting cooked. If we want to succeed, we need to recover our grandparents' work ethic. It's time to restore our character, if not for the sake of saving America, at least for your own greater success and achievement. Don't buy into the genie in a lamp idea. You can sit on your couch waiting to attract checks in your mailbox, rub crystals together, walk on fire, channel that 2,000-year-old guru, or chant affirmations if you want to, but much of that is hocus pocus commercialism manipulating you by appealing to your weaknesses. Real and lasting success requires work, and lots of it. I have a quick, real time story to illustrate this nothing fails like success concept. A great new restaurant opened up close to my home on the beach in San Diego. In the beginning, the place was always immaculate. The hostess had a big, welcoming smile for everyone. The service was impeccable. The manager came over and assured it. And the food was sensational. Soon, people started lining up to eat there and would often wait more than an hour to be seated. Then, unfortunately, the restaurant staff began to take its success for granted. The hostess became snooty, the service staff disheveled and curt, and the food quality hit or miss. The place was out of business within 18 months. They failed because of their success, or rather, because they stopped doing what made them successful to begin with. Their success clouded their perspective, and they slacked off. Microwave mentality. Understanding the compound effect will rid you of instant results expectation. The belief success should be as fast as your fast food, your 1 hour glasses, your 30-minute photo processing, your overnight mail, your microwave eggs, your instant hot water, and text messaging. Enough, okay? Promise yourself that you're going to let go once and for all of your lottery winner expectations because, let's face it, you only hear stories about the one winner, not the millions of losers. That person you see jumping up and down in front of the Vegas slot machine or at the Santa Anita horse track doesn't reveal the hundreds of times that same person lost. If we go back to our mathematical chance of a positive result, again, we have a rounding error of 0, as in you have about 0 chance of winning. Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert, author of Stumbling on Happiness, says that if we gave lottery losers each 30 seconds on TV to announce not, I won, but I lost, it would take almost 9 years to get through the losers of a single drawing. When you understand how the compound effect works, you won't pine for quick fixes or silver bullets. Don't try to fool yourself into believing that a mega successful athlete didn't live through regular bone-crushing drills and thousands of hours of practice. He got up early to practice and kept practicing long after all others had stopped. He faced the sheer agony and frustration of the failure, loneliness, hard work, and disappointment it took to become number one. By the end of this book, or even before, I want you to know in your bones that your only path to success is through a continuum of mundane, unsexy, unexciting, and sometimes difficult daily disciplines compounded over time. Know, too, that the results, the life, and the lifestyle of your dreams can be yours when you put the compound effect to work for you. If you use the principles outlined in the compound effect, you will create your fairy tale ending. See Figure 2. Fig 2. The compound effect is always working. You can choose to make it work for you, or you can ignore it and experience the negative effects of this powerful principle. It doesn't matter where you are on this graph. Starting today, you can decide to make simple, positive changes and allow the compound effect to take you where you want to go. Have I made my point? Good. Join me in the next chapter where we will focus on the one thing that controls your life. Every victory or defeat, triumph, or failure has started with this. Everything you have or don't have in your life right now has been because of this. Learn to change this, and you can change your life. Let's discover what this is. Put the compound effect to work for you summary action steps. Write out a few excuses you might be clinging to, e.g., not smart enough, no experience, wrong upbringing, don't have the education, etc. Decide to make up in hard work and personal development to outcompete anyone, including your old self. Be Scott. Write out the half dozen small, seemingly inconsequential steps you can take every day that can take your life in a completely new and positive direction. Don't be Brad. Write down the small, seemingly inconsequential actions you can stop doing that might be compounding your results downward. List a few areas, skills, or outcomes where you been most successful in the past. Consider whether you could be taking those for granted and are not continuing to improve and are therefore in jeopardy of having that complacency lead to future failure. Chapter 2. Choices. We all come into this world the same: naked, scared, and ignorant. After that grand entrance, the life we end up with is simply an accumulation of all the choices we make. Our choices can be our best friend or our worst enemy. They can deliver us to our goals or send us orbiting into a galaxy far, far away. Think about it. Everything in your life exists because you first made a choice about something. Choices are at the root of every one of your results. Each choice starts a behavior that over time becomes a habit. Choose poorly, and you just might find yourself back at the drawing board, forced to make new, often harder choices. Don't choose at all, and you've made the choice to be the passive receiver of whatever comes your way. In essence, you make your choices, and then your choices make you. Every decision, no matter how slight, alters the trajectory of your life. Whether or not to go to college, whom to marry, to have that last drink before you drive, to indulge in gossip or stay silent, to make one more prospecting call or call a day, to say I love you or not. Every choice has an impact on the compound effect of your life. This chapter is about becoming aware of and making choices that support the expansion of your life. Sounds complicated, but you'll be amazed by its simplicity. No longer will 99% of your choices be unconscious. No more will most of your daily routines and traditions come as a reaction to your programming. You'll ask yourself and be able to answer, how many of my behaviors have I not voted on? What am I doing that I didn't consciously choose to do, yet continue to do every day? By employing the same idiot-proof strategies I've used to catapult my own life and career, strengthened by the compound effect, you'll be able to loosen the mysterious grip of the things that are unwinding your life and pulling you in the wrong direction. You'll be able to hit the pause button before stumbling into idiot territory. You'll experience the ease of making decisions that lead to behaviors and habits that support you every time. Your biggest challenge isn't that you've intentionally been making bad choices. Heck, that will be easy to fix. Your biggest challenge is that you've been sleepwalking through your choices. Half the time, you're not even aware you're making them. Our choices are often shaped by our culture and upbringing. They can be so entwined in our routine behaviors and habits that they seem beyond our control. For instance, have you ever been going about your business, enjoying your life, when all of a sudden you made a stupid choice or series of small choices that ultimately sabotage your hard work and momentum, all for no apparent reason? You didn't intend to sabotage yourself, but by not thinking about your decisions, weighing the risks and potential outcomes, you found yourself facing unintended consequences. Nobody intends to become obese, go through bankruptcy, or get a divorce, but often, if not always, those consequences are the result of a series of small, poor choices. Elephants don't bite. Have you ever been bitten by an elephant? How about a mosquito? It's the little things in life that will bite you. Occasionally, we see big mistakes threaten to destroy a career or reputation in an instant. The famous comedian who rants racial slurs during a stand-up routine, the drunken anti-Semitic antics of a once celebrated humanitarian, the anti-gay rights senator caught soliciting gay sex in a restroom, the admired female tennis player who uncharacteristically threatens an official with a tirade of expletives. Clearly, these types of poor choices have major repercussions. But even if you've pulled such a whopper in your past, it's not extraordinary massive steps backward or the tragic single moments that we're concerned with here. For most of us, it's the frequent, small, and seemingly inconsequential choices that are of grave concern. I'm talking about the decisions you think don't make any difference at all. It's the little things that inevitably and predictably derail your success. Whether they're boneheaded maneuvers, no biggie behaviors, or are disguised as positive choices, those are especially insidious. These seemingly insignificant decisions can completely throw you off course because you're not mindful of them. You get overwhelmed, space out, and are unaware of the little actions that take you way off course. The compound effect works, all right. It always works, remember? But in this case, it works against you because you're sleepwalking. For instance, you inhale a soda and bag of potato chips and suddenly realize only after you polished off the last chip that you blew an entire day of healthy eating and you weren't even hungry. You get caught up and lose 2 hours watching mindless TV. Scratch that. Let's give you some credit and make it an educational documentary before realizing you spaced on preparing for an important presentation to land a valuable client. You blurt out a knee-jerk lie to a loved one for no good reason, when the truth would have worked just fine. What's going on? You've allowed yourself to make a choice without thinking. And as long as you're making choices unconsciously, you can't consciously choose to change that ineffective behavior and turn it into productive habits. It's time to wake up and make empowering choices. Thanksgiving year-round. It's easy to point fingers at others, isn't it? I'm not getting ahead because of my lame boss. I would have gotten that promotion if it hadn't been for that backstabbing coworker. I'm always in a bad mood because my kids are driving me crazy. We're particularly gifted in the finger-pointing department when it comes to our romantic relationships. You know, where the other person is the one who needs to change. A few years back, a friend of mine was complaining about his wife. From my observation, she was a terrific lady, and he was lucky to have her. I told him as much, but he continued to point out all the ways she was responsible for his unhappiness. That's when I shared an experience that had literally changed my marriage. One Thanksgiving, I decided to keep a Thanksgiving journal for my wife. Every day, for an entire year, I logged at least one thing I appreciated about her. The way she interacted with her friends, how she cared for our dogs, the fresh bed she prepared, a succulent meal she whipped up, or the beautiful way she styled her hair that day, whatever. I looked for the things my wife was doing that touched me, or revealed attributes, characteristics, or qualities I appreciated. I wrote them all down secretly for the entire year. By the end of that year, I'd filled an entire journal. When I gave it to her the following Thanksgiving, she cried, calling it the best gift she'd ever received. Even better than the BMW I'd given her for her birthday. The funny thing was that the person most affected by this gift was me. All that journaling forced me to focus on my wife's positive aspects. I was consciously looking for all the things she was doing right. That heartfelt focus overwhelmed anything I might have otherwise complained about. I fell deeply in love with her all over again, maybe even more than ever, as I was seeing subtleties in her nature and behavior instead of her more obvious qualities. My appreciation, gratitude, and intention to find the best in her was something I held in my heart and eyes each day. This caused me to show up differently in my marriage, which, of course, made her respond differently to me. Soon, I had even more things to write in my Thanksgiving journal as a result of choosing to. Take a mere 5 minutes every day or so to document all the reasons why I was grateful for her. We experienced one of the best years of our marriage, and it's only gotten better. After I share my experience, my friend decided to keep a Thanksgiving journal about his wife. Within the first few months, he completely turned around his marriage. Choosing to look for and focus on his wife's positive qualities changed his view of her, which changed how he interacted with her. As a result, she made different choices about the way she responded to him. The cycle perpetuated, or, shall we say, compounded. Use the gratitude assessment sheet on page 166 to bolster your abundant mindset. www.thecompoundeffect darrenhardy.com/free or download at owning 100%. We are all self-made men and women, but only the successful take credit for it. I was 18 when I was introduced to the idea of personal responsibility at a seminar, and the concept completely transformed my life. If you threw out the rest of this book and only practiced this one concept, within 2 to 3 years the changes in your life would be so great, your friends and family would have difficulty remembering the old you. In that seminar I attended at 18, the speaker asked, "What percentage of shared responsibility do you have in making a relationship work?" I was a teenager, so wise in the ways of true love. Of course, I had all the answers. 50/50, I blurted out. It was so obvious. Both people must be willing to share the responsibility evenly, or someone's getting ripped off. 51/49, yelled someone else, arguing that you'd have to be willing to do more than the other person. Aren't relationships built on self-sacrifice and generosity? 80/20, yelled another. The instructor turned to the easel and wrote 100/0 on the paper in big black letters. You have to be willing to give 100% with zero expectation of receiving anything in return, he said. Only when you're willing to take 100% responsibility for making the relationship work will it work. Otherwise, a relationship left to chance will always be vulnerable to disaster. Whoa, this wasn't what I was expecting. But I quickly understood how this concept could transform every area of my life. If I always took 100% responsibility for everything I experienced, completely owning all of my choices and all the ways I responded to whatever happened to me, I held the power. Everything was up to me. I was responsible for everything I did, didn't do, or how I responded to what was done to me. I know you think you take responsibility for your life. I've yet to ask anybody who doesn't say, "Of course, I take responsibility for my life." But then you look at how most people operate in the world. There's a lot of finger pointing, victimhood, blaming, and expecting someone else or the government to solve their problems. If you've ever blamed traffic for being late, or decided you were in a bad mood because of something your kid, spouse, or coworker did, you're not taking 100% personal responsibility. You arrived late because the printer was busy. Maybe you shouldn't have waited until the last minute. Coworker messed up the presentation. Shouldn't you have double-checked it yourself before delivering it? Not getting along with your unreasonable teen? There are countless fantastic books and classes to help you learn how to deal. You alone are responsible for what you do, don't do, or how you respond to what's done to you. This empowering mindset revolutionized my life. Luck, circumstances, or the right situation wasn't what mattered. If it was to be, it was up to me. I was free to fly. No matter who was elected president, how badly the economy tanked, or what anybody said, did, or didn't do, I was still 100% in control of me. Through choosing to be officially liberated from past, present, and future victimhood, I'd hit the jackpot. I had the unlimited power to control my destiny. Getting lucky. Maybe you believe you're simply unlucky, but really, that's just another excuse. The difference between becoming fabulously rich, happy, and healthy, or broke, depressed, and unhealthy is the choices you make throughout life. Nothing else will make the difference. Here's the thing about luck. We're all lucky. If you're on the right side of the dirt, have your health, and a little food in your cupboard, you are incredibly lucky. Everyone has the opportunity to be lucky because beyond having the basics of health and sustenance, luck simply comes down to a series of choices. When I asked Richard Branson if he felt luck played a part in his success, he answered, "Yes, of course, we are all lucky. If you live in a free society, you are lucky. Luck surrounds us every day. We are constantly having lucky things happen to us, whether you recognize it or not. I have not been any more lucky or unlucky than anyone else. The difference is when luck came my way, I took advantage of it." Ah, spoken like a man knighted with wisdom. While we're on the topic, it's my belief that the old adage we often hear, luck is when opportunity meets preparation, isn't enough. I believe there are two other critical components to luck, the complete formula for getting lucky. Preparation, personal growth, plus attitude, belief/mindset, plus opportunity, a good thing coming your way, plus action, doing something about it, equals luck. Preparation. By consistently improving and preparing yourself, your skills, knowledge, expertise, relationships, and resources, you have the wherewithal to take advantage of great opportunities when they arise, when luck strikes. Then, you could be like Arnold Palmer, who told Success magazine in February of 2009, "It's a funny thing. The more I practice, the luckier I get." Attitude. This is where luck evades most people, and where Sir Richard is spot on with his belief that luck is all around us. It's simply a matter of seeing situations, conversations, and circumstances as fortuitous. You cannot see what you don't look for, and you cannot look for what you don't believe in. Opportunity. It's possible to make your own luck, but the luck I'm talking about here isn't planned for, or it comes faster or differently than expected. In this stage of the formula, luck isn't forced. It's a natural occurrence, and it often shows up seemingly of its own accord. Action. This is where you come in. However, this luck was delivered to you from a universe, God, the Lucky Charms leprechaun, or whomever or whatever you associate delivering your good fortune. It's now your job to act on it. This is what separates the Richard Bransons from the Joseph Wallingtons. Joseph who? Exactly. You've never heard of him. That's because he failed to take action on all the lucky things that happened to him. So no more whining about the cards you were dealt, the great defeats you suffered, or any other circumstances. Countless people have more disadvantages and greater obstacles than you, and yet they're wealthier and more fulfilled. Luck is an equal opportunity distributor. Lady Luck shines on all, but rather than having your umbrella overhead, you got to have your face to the sky. When it comes down to it, it's all you, baby. There's no other way around it. The high price of tuition at UHK, University of Hard. Knox. Nearly a decade ago, I was asked to be a partner in a new startup venture. I invested a considerable sum of money into the deal and worked tirelessly on it for nearly 2 years before finding out that my partner had mismanaged and squandered all the cash. I lost more than $330,000. I didn't try to sue him. In fact, I lent him more money later for a personal situation. The bottom line was the loss was my fault. I had agreed to be his partner without doing enough due diligence on his background and personal character. During our time in business, I wasn't inspecting what I was expecting. I could justify it by saying I trusted him, but the truth was I was guilty of being lazy by not watching the finances more diligently. Not only had I made the choice to start this relationship in business, but I'd also made many choices to ignore obvious red flags and warning signs, because I chose to not be completely responsible for the business. In the end, I was responsible for the results. When I learned of the wrongdoings, I chose not to lose any more time fighting it. Instead, I licked my wounds, learned my lesson, and moved on. In hindsight, I'd make the same choice to pick up and move on again today. I now challenge you to do the same. No matter what has happened to you, take complete responsibility for it, good or bad, victory or defeat. Own it. My mentor Jim Rohn said, "The day you graduate from childhood to adulthood is the day you take full responsibility for your life." Today is graduation day. From this day forward, choose to be 100% responsible for your life. Eliminate all of your excuses. Embrace the fact that you are freed by your choices, as long as you assume personal responsibility for them. It's time to make the choice to take control. Your secret weapon, your scorecard. I'm about to walk you through one of the single greatest strategies I've ever used in my personal development. This strategy helps me take control of the choices I make throughout the day, causing everything else to fall into place and leading to behaviors and actions that shepherd my habits into line like dutiful, loyal minions. Right this moment, pick an area of your life where you most want to be successful. Do you want more money in the bank? A trimmer waistline? The strength to compete in an Ironman event? A better relationship with your spouse or kids? Picture where you are in that area right now. Now picture where you want to be: richer, thinner, happier, you name it. The first step toward change is awareness. If you want to get from where you are to where you want to be, you have to start by becoming aware of the choices that lead you away from your desired destination. Become very conscious of every choice you make today so you can begin to make smarter choices moving forward. To help you become aware of your choices, I want you to track every action that relates to the area of your life you want to improve. If you've decided you want to get out of debt, you're going to track every penny you pull from your pocket. If you've decided you want to lose weight, you're going to track everything you put into your mouth. If you decided to train for an athletic event, you're going to track every step you take, every workout you do. Simply carry around a small notebook, something you'll keep in your pocket or purse at all times, and a writing instrument. You're going to write it all down, every day, without fail. No excuses, no exceptions. As if Big Brother's watching you. As if my dad and I will come and make you do 100 push-ups every time you miss. Doesn't sound like much, I know, writing things down on a little piece of paper. But tracking my progress and missteps is one of the reasons I've accumulated the success I have. The process forces you to be conscious of your decisions. But as Jim Rohn would say, what's simple to do is also simple not to do. The magic is not in the complexity of the task. The magic is in the doing of simple things repeatedly and long enough to ignite the miracle of the compound effect. So, beware of neglecting the simple things that make the big things in your life possible. The biggest difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not. Remember that. It will come in handy many times throughout life when faced with a difficult, tedious, or tough choice. Money trap. I learned the power of tracking the hard way after I'd acted like a colossal idiot about my finances. Back in my early 20s, when I was making a lot of money selling real estate, I met with my accountant. "You owe well over $100,000 in taxes," he said. "What?" I said. "I don't have that kind of cash just lying around." "Why not?" he asked. "You collected several times that. Certainly you set aside the taxes that would be due on that money." "Evidently I didn't," I said. "Where did the money go?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, a sobering confession for sure. The money had passed through my hands like water, and I hadn't even noticed. Then my accountant did me a great favor. "Son," he said, looking me dead in the eyes, "you've got to get a grip. I've seen this 100 times before. You're spending money like a drunken fool, and you don't even know how to account for it. That's stupid. Stop it. You're now seriously in the hole. You have to earn more money that you'll owe additional taxes on just to pay for your back taxes. Continue this, and you'll dig your financial grave with your own wallet." I immediately got the message. Here's what my accountant had me do: carry a small notepad in my back pocket and write down every single cent I spent for 30 days. Whether it was $1,000 for a new suit or 50 cents for air to fill up my tires, it all had to go down on the notepad. Wow, this brought an instantaneous awareness of the many unconscious choices I was making that resulted in money pouring out of my pockets. Because I had to log everything, I resisted buying some things just so I didn't have to take out the notepad and write it in the dang book. Keeping a money log for 30 days straight cemented a new awareness in me and created a completely new set of choices and disciplines around my spending. And Since awareness and positive behaviors compound, I found myself being more proactive with money in general, putting away more for retirement, finding areas to save where there was clear waste, and enjoying the fun quotient of money, play money, all the more. When I did consider shelling out for entertainment, I did so only after a long pause. This tracking exercise changed my awareness of how I related to my money. It worked so well, in fact, that I've used it many times to change other behaviors. Tracking is my go-to transformation model for everything that ails me. Over the years, I've tracked what I eat and drink, how much I exercise, how much time I spend improving a skill, my number of sales calls, even the improvement of my relationships with family, friends, or my spouse. The results have been no less profound than my money tracking wake-up call. In buying this book, you're basically paying me for my opinion, my guidance. This is where I'm going to become a hard ass and insist you track your behaviors for at least one whole week. This book isn't designed to entertain you. It is designed to help you get results. To get results, you have to take some action. You may have heard about tracking before. In fact, you've probably done your own version of this exercise. But I also bet you aren't doing it now, right? How do I know? Because your life isn't working as successfully as you'd like. You've gotten derailed. Tracking is the way to get it back on track. Do you know how the casinos make so much money in Vegas? Because they track every table, every winner, every hour. Why do Olympic trainers get paid top dollar? Because they track every workout, every calorie, and every micronutrient for their athletes. All winners are trackers. Right now, I want you to track your life with the same intention, to bring your goals within sight. Tracking is a simple exercise. It works because it brings moment-to-moment awareness to the actions you take in the area of your life you want to improve. You'll be surprised at what you will observe about your behavior. You cannot manage or improve something until you measure it. Likewise, you can't make the most of who you are, your talents and resources and capabilities, until you are aware of and accountable for your actions. Every professional athlete and his or her coach track each performance down to the smallest minutiae. Pitchers know their stats on every pitch in their repertoire. Golfers have even more metrics on their swings. Professional athletes know how to adjust their performances based on what they've tracked. They pay attention to what they record and make changes accordingly, because they know when their stats improve, they win more games and earn more in endorsement deals. At any given moment, I want you to know exactly how well you're doing. I'm asking you to track yourself as if you're a valuable commodity. Because you are. Want that idiot-proof system we talked about earlier? This is it. So, regardless of whether you think you're aware of your habits or not, believe me, you're not. I'm asking you to start tracking. Doing so will revolutionize your life and ultimately your lifestyle. Keep it slow and easy. Don't panic. We're starting off with an easy, breezy tempo. Just track one habit for 1 week. Pick the habit that has the greatest control over you. That's where you'll start. Once you begin reaping the rewards of the compound effect, you'll naturally want to introduce this practice into other areas of your life. In other words, you'll choose tracking. Let's say the category you choose is getting your eating under control because you want to lose weight. Your task is to write down everything you put in your mouth, from the steak, potatoes, and salad you have at dinner to those many tiny choices during the day. That handful of pretzels in the break room, that second slice of cheese on your sandwich, that fun-sized candy bar, that sample at Costco, those extra sips of wine after the host tops off your glass. Don't forget the beverages. They all add up, but unless tracked, they're easy to dismiss or forget because they seem so small. Again, merely writing these things down sounds simple, and it is, but only when you do it. That's why I'm asking that you commit to choosing a category and a start date now, before you turn this page. I am going to start tracking underscore date/month/year. What will the tracking look like? It will be thorough as in organized, and relentless as in constant. Each day you'll start with the date at the top of a fresh page and start keeping track. What happens after the first week of tracking? You'll probably be in shock. You'll be astonished at how those calories, pennies, minutes have been escaping you. You never even knew that they were there, let alone that they'd vanished. Now, keep going. You're going to track in this one area for 3 weeks. Maybe you're already groaning. You just don't want to do it. But trust me, you'll be so blown away by the results after 1 week you'll sign yourself up for another 2. I can practically guarantee it. Why 3 weeks? You've heard psychologists say that something doesn't become a habit until you practice it for 3 weeks. It's not an exact science, but it's a good benchmark and it has worked for me. So, ideally, I want you to stick with your choice to track your behaviors for 21 days. If you refuse, I'm not going to lose anything. Heck, it's not my waistline, cardiovascular health. Bank balance, a relationship you're messing with. But seriously, you're reading this book because you want to change your life, right? And I promise you it was going to take slow, steady work, didn't I? This one action isn't easy, but it's simple and doable. So do it. Promise yourself to start today. For the next 3 weeks, choose to carry around your own small notepad or large one, if that's more enticing, and write every single thing down in your category. What happens in 3 weeks? You move from the shock that follows the first week to the happy surprise of seeing how merely becoming conscious of your actions begins to shape them. You'll find yourself asking, do I really want that candy bar? I'm going to have to haul out my notebook and write it down, and I'll feel a little sheepish. That's 200 calories saved right there. Turn down that candy bar every day, and in a little more than 2 weeks, you'll have already lost a pound. You'll start adding up that $4 coffee on the way to work and realize, holy cow, I've just spent $60 on coffee in 3 weeks. Hey, that's $1,000 a year. Or compounded, that's $51,833.79 in 20 years. How much do you really need to stop for coffee? See Figure 3. Fig 3. The real cost of a $4 a day coffee habit over 20 years is $51,833.79. That's the power of the compound effect. Come again? Am I saying that your $4 a day coffee habit is going to cost you $51,833.79 in 20 years? Yes, I am. Did you know that every dollar you spend today, no matter where you spend it, is costing you nearly $5? In only 20 years and $10 in 30 years. That's because if you took a dollar and invested it at 8%, in 20 years, that dollar would be worth almost 5. Every time you spend $1 today, it's like taking $5 out of your future pocket. I used to make the mistake of looking at a price tag and thinking that if an item was listed at $50, it cost me $50. Well, yes, in today's dollars. But if you consider the potential value of that same $50 after it has been invested for 20 years the cost, what you lose by spending that money rather than investing it is 4 or 5 times greater. In other words, every time you look at an item that costs $50, you have to ask, is this item worth $250? If it's worth $250 to you today, then it's worth buying. Keep that in mind next time you go to a place like Costco with all sorts of amazing things that you didn't know you had to have. You go in to buy $25 worth of necessities and walk out with $400 of stuff instead. My garage looks like a Costco graveyard. Next time you walk into one of those bargain basement stores, assess things from this future value standpoint. Chances are, you'll put down that $50 crepe maker, so future you will have $250 more in the bank. Make the correct choice every day, every week for many years, and you can quickly see how you can become financially abundant. When you track with this awareness, you'll find yourself showing up in your life very differently. You'll be able to ask yourself, Is having a coffee once every workday worth the eventual price of a Mercedes Benz? Because that's what it's costing you. Even more than that, you're not sleepwalking anymore. You're aware and conscious and making better choices. All from a little notebook and pen. Simply amazing, isn't it? The unsung, unseen hero. Once you start tracking your life, your attention will be focused on the smallest things you're doing right, as well as the smallest things you're doing wrong. And when you choose to make even the smallest course corrections consistently, over time, you'll begin to see amazing results. But don't expect immediate fanfare. When I say small course corrections, I'm talking truly invisible. Chances are no one's going to notice them anytime soon. There will be no applause. No one's going to send you a congratulations card or a trophy for these disciplines. And yet, eventually, their compounding effect will result in an exceptional payoff. It's the littlest disciplines that pay off over time, the effort and preparation for the great triumph that happened when no one was looking. And yet the results are exceptional. A horse wins by a nose, but gets 10 times the prize money. Is the horse 10 times faster? No, just a little bit better. But it was those extra laps around the track, the extra discipline in the horse's nutrition, or the extra work by the jockey that made the results a slight bit better with compounded rewards. After hundreds of tournaments played and thousands of strokes tallied, the difference between the number 1 ranked golfer and the number 10 golfer is an average of only 1.9 strokes. But the difference in prize money is 5 times, over $10 million versus $2 million. The number 1 golfer isn't 5 times better, not even 50% or even 10% better. In fact, the difference between his average score is only 2.7% better. Yet, the results are 5 times greater. See figure 4. Fig 4. The difference between the number 1 ranked golfer and the number 10 golfer is an average of only 1.9 strokes, but the difference in prize money is 5 times. That's the power of the compound effect. Source: FedEx Cup ranking as of mid-December 2009. That's the power of little things adding up. It's not the big things that add up in the end. It's the hundreds, thousands, or millions of little things that separate. The ordinary from the extraordinary. To be 1 stroke better requires countless little things that don't get accounted for when you're putting on the green jacket. Let me give you a few more ways tracking small changes can result in huge payoffs. Take a walk. I was mentoring a CEO of a sizable company doing more than $100 million in sales annually. Phil was an entrepreneur and founder of the company. The company was doing fine, but I detected a lack of engagement, trust, and enthusiasm in the culture of his organization. I wasn't too surprised. It turns out that Phil hadn't been in parts of his own building for more than 5 years. He'd never spoken personally to more than 80% of his staff. He basically lived in a bubble with his management team. I asked Phil to track just one change. 3 times a week, he had to step outside of his office and walk around the building. His goal was to seek out at least 3 people whom he saw doing things right or had heard good things about, and give them some personal acknowledgement of his appreciation. This one small change in his behavior took less than an hour a week, but had massive effects over time. The employees, Phil, took the time to recognize, began to go the extra mile, and work harder to earn his. Greater appreciation. Other employees started to perform better, observing that great effort was recognized and appreciated. The ripple effect of their new attitude transferred to their customer interactions, improving the customer's experience with the company, increasing repeat and referral business, which increased everyone's pride. That simple change over the period of 18 months did a complete 180 on the company culture. Net profits grew by more than 30% during that time, utilizing the same staff and 0 additional investment in marketing. All because Phil committed to one small, seemingly insignificant step done consistently over time. Money tree. 12 years ago, I had a wonderful assistant, Kathleen. She earned $40,000 a year at the time. She was tasked to manage the registration table situated at the back of the room during one of my lectures on entrepreneurship and wealth building. The next week, she came into my office. I heard you talk about saving 10% of everything you earn, she told me. That sounds nice, but there is no way I could do that. It's totally unrealistic. She proceeded to tell me about all her bills and financial obligations. After she wrote them all out, it was obvious there really wasn't any money left over at the end of the month. I need a raise, she said. I'll do better than that, I told her. I'm going to teach you how to become wealthy. It wasn't the answer she was looking for, but she agreed. I taught Kathleen how to track her spending, and she began to carry her notebook. I told her to open a separate savings account with only $33, just 1% of her existing monthly income. I then showed her how to live on $33 less the next month, bring in her own lunch just one day a week instead of going downstairs to the deli and ordering a sandwich, chips, and a drink. The next month, I had her save only 2%, $67. She saved the additional $33 by changing her cable subscription service. The next month, we went up to 3%. We canceled her subscription to People magazine. It was time to study her own life. And instead of going to Starbucks twice a week, I told Kathleen to buy the Starbucks beans and other fancy fixings and make her own coffee in the office. She grew to like that even better. Me too. By the end of the year, Kathleen was saving 10% of every dollar she earned without noticing a significant impact on her lifestyle. She was amazed. That one discipline also had a ripple effect on many other disciplines in her life. She calculated what she spent on mind-numbing entertainment and began investing that money on personal growth instead. After feeding her mind with several hundred hours of inspirational and instructional content, her creativity started to soar. She brought me several ideas on how we could make and save more money in our organization. She presented me with a plan that she would implement in her spare time if I promised to reward her with 10% of all the money-saving strategies and 15% of all the new revenue strategies that proved profitable. By the end of the second year, she was earning more than $100,000 a year on the same $40,000 base salary. Kathleen eventually started her own independent contract service business that took off. I ran into Kathleen at an airport 2 years ago. She now earns more than $250,000 a year and has saved and created more than $1 million in assets. She's a millionaire, all starting from the choice to take one small step and start saving $33 a month. Time is of the essence. The earlier you start making small changes, the more powerfully the compound effect works in your favor. Suppose your friend listened to Dave Ramsey's advice and began putting $250 a month into an IRA where she got her first job after graduating from college at age 23. You, on the other hand, don't start saving until you're 40. Or maybe you started saving a little earlier but cleaned out your retirement account because you didn't notice any great gains. By the time your friend is 40, she never has to invest another dollar and will have more than a $1 million by the age of 67, growing at 8% interest compounded monthly. You continue to invest $250 every month until you reach 67, the normal retirement age for Social Security for those born after 1960. That means you're saving for 27 years in contrast to her 17 years. When you're ready to retire, you'll have less. Then $300,000 and will have invested $27,000 more than your friend. Even though you saved for many more years and invested much more cash, you still ended up with less than a third of the money you could have had. That's what happens when we procrastinate and neglect necessary behaviors, habits, and disciplines. Don't wait another day to start the small disciplines that will lead you in the direction of your goals. See Figure 5. Fig 5. Are you telling yourself that you're starting so late that you're already way behind the 8 ball and can never catch up? That's just another tired tape in your head. It's time to turn it off. It's never too late to reap the benefits of the compound effect. Suppose you've always wanted to play the piano, but feel it's too late because you're about to turn 40. If you start now, by the time your retirement age, you could be a master, as you'll have been playing for 25 years. The key is to start now. Every great act, every fantastic adventure starts with small steps. The first step always looks harder than it actually is. But what if 25 years is too long? What if you've only got time or patience for 10 years? In Brian Tracy's book Focal Point, Omicom, 2002, he models how to improve any area of your life by 1,000%. Not 10% or even 100%, but 1,000%. Let me outline it for you. All you have to do is improve yourself, your performance, and your output. And earnings by 0.1% each workday. You even get to slack off on weekends. That is 1/1,000. Do you think you could do that? Of course, anyone could do that. Simple. Do it each day of the week, and you'll improve by 0.5% each week. Translation. Not much, equaling 2% each month, which compounded adds up to 26% each year. Your income now doubles each 2.9 years. By year 10, you could be performing and earning 1,000% what you are now. Isn't that amazing? You don't have to put in 1,000% more effort or work 1,000% more hours. Just 0.1% improvement each day. That's it. Success is a half marathon. Beverly was a salesperson for an educational software company for which I was doing a turnaround. One day, she told me about her friend who was running a half marathon the upcoming weekend. I could never do such a thing. Beverly, who was significantly overweight, assured me. I get winded going up a single flight of stairs. If you want to, you can choose to do what your friend is doing, I told her. She balked, saying, "There's absolutely no way." My first step was to help Beverly find her motivation. So, Beverly, why would you want to run the half marathon? Well, my 20-year high school reunion is coming up next summer, and I want to look fabulous. But I've gained so much weight since I had my second child 5 years ago. I don't know how I can do it. Bingo. Now we had a motivating goal, but I proceeded with caution. If you've ever tried to lose weight, you probably know the drill. Buy an expensive gym membership, drop a fortune on personal trainers, new equipment, spiffy new workout clothes, and great athletic footwear. Work out vigorously for a week or so, and then turn your elliptical machine into a clothes-drying rack. Ditch the gym, and let your sneakers mold in the corner. I wanted to try a better way with Beverly. I knew that if I could get her to choose just one new habit, she'd get hooked, and all the other behaviors would naturally fall into line. I asked Beverly to drive her car around the block and map out a 1-mile loop from her house. Then, I told her to walk the loop 3 times over a period of 2 weeks. Notice that I didn't ask her to start by running a mile. Instead, I started with a small, easy task that required no major stretch. Then I had her walk the loop 3 times in 1 week for an additional 2 weeks. Each day, she made the choice to continue on. Next, I told Beverly to start a slow jog, only as far as she felt comfortable. As soon as she started feeling breathless, she was to stop and continue walking. I asked her to do this until she could run 1/4, then 1/2, and then 3/4 of that mile. It took 3 more weeks, 9 outings before she could jog a full mile. After a total of 7 weeks, she was jogging the whole loop. That might seem like a long time for such a short victory, right? After all, half a marathon is 13.1 miles. 1 mile is nothing. What was something, however, was that Beverly was beginning to see how her choice to get fit for the reunion, her Y power, as I'll soon explain, was fueling her new health habits. The compound effect had been set in motion and was starting its miraculous process. I then asked Beverly to increase her distance 1/8 of a mile each outing, an almost unnoticeable length, maybe only 300 steps further. Within 6 months, she was running 9 miles without any discomfort at all. In 9 months, She was running 13.5 miles regularly, more than the distance of a half marathon, as part of her running routine. More exciting, though, was what happened in other areas of her life. Beverly lost her cravings for chocolate, a lifelong obsession, and heavy, fatty foods. Gone. The increased energy she felt from the cardiovascular exercise and better eating choices helped her bring more enthusiasm to her work. Her sales performance doubled during the same period, which was great for me. As we saw in the previous chapter, the ripple effects of all this momentum raised her self-esteem, which made her more affectionate toward her husband. Their relationship became more passionate than it had been since college. Because she had renewed energy, her interaction with her children became more active and animated. She noticed she no longer had time to hang out with her Debbie Downer friends who still gathered together after work for greasy appetizers and drinks. She made new healthy friends in a running club she joined, which led to a whole host of additional positive choices, behaviors, and habits. Following that first conversation in my office and Beverly's decision to find her why power and commit to a series of small steps, she lost more than 40 pounds, becoming a walking and running billboard for fit and empowered. Women. Today, Beverly runs full marathons. Your life is the product of your moment-to-moment choices. In our Success CD, May 2010, TV's Biggest Loser fitness trainer Jillian Michaels shared with me a powerful childhood story. When I was a kid, my mom would have these elaborate Easter egg hunts for me. I would run around the house, and when I would get close to a hidden egg, she'd say, "Oh, you're warm." You get closer to it. "Oh, you're on fire." And then you move away from the egg, and she'd go, "Oh, you're cold. You're freezing." I teach contestants that on a moment-to-moment basis, I need them to think about their happiness and their ultimate goal as being warm. How every choice and every decision they make in the moment is getting them closer to that ultimate goal. Since your outcomes are all a result of your moment-to-moment choices, you have incredible power to change your life by changing those choices. Step by step, day by day, your choices will shape your actions until they become habits. Where practice makes them permanent. Losing is a habit. So is winning. Now, let's work on permanently instilling winning habits into your life. Eliminate sabotaging habits and instill the needed positive habits. And you can take your life in any direction you desire to the heights of your greatest imagination. Let me show you how. Put the compound effect to work for you. Summary action steps. What area, person, or circumstance in your life do you struggle with the most? Start journaling all the aspects of that situation that you are grateful for. Keep a record of everything that reinforces and expands your gratitude in that area. Where in your life are you not taking 100% responsibility for the success or failure of your present condition? Write down 3 things you have done in the past that have messed things up. List 3 things you should have done but didn't. Write out 3 things that happened to you, but you responded poorly. Write down 3 things you can start doing right now to take back responsibility for the outcomes of your life. Start tracking at least one behavior in one area of your life you'd like to change and improve, e.g., money, nutrition, fitness, recognizing others, parenting, any area. Chapter 3. Habits. A wise teacher was taking a stroll through the forest with a young pupil and stopped before a tiny tree. "Pull up that sapling," the teacher instructed his pupil, pointing to a sprout just coming up from the earth. The youngster pulled it up easily with his fingers. "Now pull up that one," said the teacher, indicating a more established sapling that had grown to about knee-high to the boy. With little effort, the lad yanked and the tree came up, roots and all. "And now, this one," said the teacher, nodding toward a more well-developed evergreen that was as tall as the young pupil. With great effort, throwing all his weight and strength into the task, using sticks and stone, he found to pry up the stubborn roots. The boy finally got the tree loose. "Now," the wise one said, "I'd like you to pull this one up." The young boy followed the teacher's gaze, which fell upon a mighty oak, so tall the boy could scarcely see the top. Knowing the great struggle he just at pulling up the much smaller tree, he simply told his teacher, "I am sorry, but I can't." My son, you have just demonstrated the power that habits will have over your life, the teacher exclaimed. The older they are, the bigger they get, the deeper the roots grow, and the harder they are to uproot. Some get so big, with roots so deep, you might hesitate to even try. Creatures of habit. Aristotle wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do." Merriam-Webster defines habit this way: an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. There's a story about a man riding a horse, galloping quickly. It appears that he's going somewhere very important. A man standing along the roadside shouts, "Where are you going?" The rider replies, "I don't know. Ask the horse." This is the story of most people's lives. They're riding the horse of their habits, with no idea where they're headed. It's time to take control of the reins and move your life in the direction of where you really want to go. If you've been living on autopilot and allowing your habits to run you, I want you to understand why. And I want you to let yourself off the hook. After all, you're in good company. Psychological studies reveal that 95% of everything we feel, think, do, and achieve is a result of a learned habit. We're born with instincts, of course, but no habits at all. We develop them over time. Beginning in childhood, we learned a series of conditioned responses that led us to react automatically, as in, without thinking, to most situations. In your day-to-day life, living automatically has its definite positives. If you had to consciously think about every step of each ordinary task, making breakfast, driving the kids to school, getting to work, and so on, your life would grind to a halt. You probably brush your teeth twice a day on autopilot. There's no big philosophical debate. You just do it. You strap on your seatbelt the minute your butt hits the seat. No second thoughts. Our habits and routines allow us to use minimal conscious energy for everyday tasks. They help keep us sane and enable us to handle most situations reasonably well. And because we don't have to think about the mundane, we can focus our mental energy on more creative and enriching thoughts. Habits can be helpful, as long as they're good habits, that is. If you eat healthfully, you've likely built healthy habits around the food you buy and what you order at restaurants. If you're fit, it's probably because you work out regularly. If you're successful in a sales job, it's probably because your habits of mental preparation and positive self-talk enable you to stay optimistic in the face of rejection. I've met and worked with many great achievers, CEOs, and superstars, and I can tell you they all share one common trait. They all have good habits. That's not to say they don't have bad habits. They do, but not many. A daily routine built on good habits is the difference that separates the most successful amongst us from everyone else. And doesn't that make sense? From what we've already discussed, you know successful people aren't necessarily more intelligent or more talented than anyone else, but their habits take them in the direction of becoming more informed, more knowledgeable, more competent, better skilled, and better prepared. My dad used Larry Bird as an example to teach me about habits when I was a kid. Larry Legend is known as one of the greatest professional basketball players, but he wasn't known for being the most athletically talented player. Nobody would have described Larry as graceful on the basketball court. Yet, despite his limited natural athletic ability, he led the Boston Celtics to 3 world championships and remains one of the best players of all time. How'd he do it? It was Larry's habits, his relentless dedication to practice and to improve his game. Bird was one of the most consistent free throw shooters in the history of the NBA. Growing up, his habit was to practice 500 free throw shots every morning before school. With that kind of discipline, Larry made the most of his God-given talents and kicked the butts of some of the most gifted players on the court. Like Larry Bird, you can condition your automatic and unconscious responses to be those of a developed champion. This chapter is about choosing to make up for what you lack in innate ability with discipline, hard work, and good habits. It's about becoming a creature of champion habits. With enough practice and repetition, any behavior, good or bad, becomes automatic over time. That means that even though we developed most of our habits unconsciously by modeling our parents, responding to environmental or cultural associations, or creating coping mechanisms, we can consciously decide to change them. It stands to reason that since you learned every habit you have, you can also unlearn the ones that aren't serving you well. Ready? Here goes. Start by thinking your way out of the instant gratification trap. We understand that scarfing Pop Tarts won't slenderize our waistlines. We realize that logging 3 hours a night watching Dancing with the Stars and NCIS leaves us with 3 fewer hours to read a good book or listen to a terrific audio. We get that merely purchasing great running shoes doesn't make us marathon ready. We're a rational species. At least that's what we tell ourselves. So why are we so irrationally enslaved by so many bad habits? It's because our need for immediate gratification can turn us into the most reactive, non-thinking animals around. If you took a bite of a Big Mac and immediately fell to the ground, clutching your chest from a heart attack, you might not go back for that second bite. If your next puff of a cigarette instantly mutated your face into that of a weathered 85-year-old, chances are you'd pass on that too. If you fail to make that 10th call today and were immediately fired and bankrupted, suddenly picking up the phone would be a no-brainer. And if that first forkful of cake instantly put 50 pounds on your frame, saying no thank you to dessert would be the true piece of cake. The problem is that the payoff or instant gratification derived from bad habits often far outweighs what's going on in your rational mind concerning long-term consequences. Indulging in our bad habits doesn't seem to have any negative effects at all in the moment. You don't have that heart attack, your face doesn't shrivel up, you're not standing in the unemployment line, and your thighs aren't thunderous. But that doesn't mean you haven't activated the compound effect. It's time to wake up and realize that the habits you indulge in could be compounding your life into repeated disaster. The slightest adjustments to your daily routines can dramatically alter the outcomes in your life. Again, I'm not talking about quantum leaps of change or a complete overhaul of your personality, character, and life. Super small, seemingly inconsequential adjustments can and will revolutionize everything. The best illustration I can give you to emphasize the power of small adjustments is that of a plane traveling from Los Angeles to New York City. If the nose of the plane is pointed only 1% off course, almost an invisible adjustment when the plane's sitting on the tarmac in Los Angeles, it will ultimately end up about 150 miles off course, arriving either upstate in Albany or in Dover, Delaware. Such is the case for your habits. A single poor habit, which doesn't look like much in the moment, can ultimately lead you miles off course from the direction of your goals and the life you desire. See Figure 6. Most people drift through life without devoting much conscious energy to figuring out specifically what they want and what they need to do to take themselves there. I want to show you how to ignite your passion and help you aim your unstoppable creative power in the direction of your heart's dreams and desires. Uprooting bad habits that have grown into mighty oaks is going to be arduous and difficult. To see the process through will require something greater than even the most relentless determination. Willpower alone won't cut it. Fig 6. The power of small adjustments. A 1% change in course results in being 150 miles off course. Finding your mojo, your why power. Assuming willpower is what you need to change your habits is akin to trying to keep a hungry grizzly bear out of your picnic basket by covering it with a napkin. To fight the bear of your bad habits, you need something stronger. When you're having trouble doing the hard work of achieving your goals, it's common to believe you simply lack willpower. I disagree. It's not enough to choose to be successful. What's going to keep you consistent with the new positive choices you need to make? What's going to stop you from falling back into your mindless bad habits? What's going to be different this time versus the times you've tried and failed before? As soon as you get the slightest bit uncomfortable, you're going to be tempted to slide back into your old, comfortable routine. You've tried willpower before and it's failed you. You've set resolutions and you've let them go. You thought you were going to lose all that weight last time. You thought you'd make all those sales calls last year. Let's stop the insanity and do something different so you can get different and better results. Forget about willpower. It's time for why power. Your choices are only meaningful when you connect them to your desires and dreams. The wisest and most motivating choices are the ones aligned with that which you identify as your purpose, your core self, and your highest values. You got to want something and know why you want it, or you'll end up giving up too easily. So, what is your why? You've got to have a reason if you want to make significant improvements to your life. And to make you want to make the necessary changes, your why must be something that is fantastically motivating to you. You got to want to get up and go, 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 go for years. So, what is it that moves you the most? Identifying your why is critical. What motivates you is the ignition to your passion, the source for your enthusiasm, and the fuel of your persistence. This is so important that I made it the focus of another book, Living Your Best Year Ever. A proven system for achieving big goals. Success Books, 2011. You must know your why. Why everything's possible. The power of your why is what gets you to stick through the grueling, mundane, and laborious. All of the hows will be meaningless until your whys are powerful enough. Until you've set your desire and motivation in place, you'll abandon any new path you seek to better your life. If your why power, your desire, isn't great enough, if the fortitude of your commitment isn't powerful enough, you'll end up like every other person who makes a New Year's resolution and gives up too quickly and reverts to sleepwalking through poor choices. Let me give you an analogy to help bring it home. If I were to put a 10-inch wide, 30-foot long plank on the ground and say, if you walk the length of the plank, I'll give you $20, would you do it? Of course, it's an easy $20. But what if I took that same plank and made a rooftop bridge between two 100-story buildings? That same $20 for walking the 30-foot plank no longer looks desirable or even possible, does it? You'd look at me and say, not on your life. See figure 7. However, if your child was on the opposite building and that building was on fire, would you walk the length of the plank to save him? Without question and immediately, you'd do it $20 or not. Fig 7. Is your why power great enough? Why is it that the first time I asked you to cross that sky-high plank, you said no way, yet the second time you wouldn't hesitate? The risks and the dangers are the same. What changed? Your why changed, your reason for wanting to do it. You see, when the reason is big enough, you will be willing to perform almost anyhow. To truly ignite your creative potential and inner drive, you have to look beyond the motivation of monetary and material goals. It's not that those motivations are bad. In fact, they're great. I'm a connoisseur of nice things. But material stuff can't really recruit your heart, soul, and guts into the fight. That passion has to come from a deeper place. And even if you acquire the shiny objects, you won't capture the real prize, happiness and fulfillment. In my interview with peak performance expert Anthony Robbins, Success, January 2009, he said, I have seen business moguls achieve their ultimate goals, but still live in frustration, worry, and fear. What's preventing these successful people from being happy? The answer is they have focused only on achievement and not fulfillment. Extraordinary accomplishment does not guarantee extraordinary joy, happiness, love, and a sense of meaning. These two skill sets feed off each other and makes me believe that success without fulfillment is failure. Well said. That's why it's not enough to choose to be successful. You have to dig deeper than that to find your core motivation, to activate your superpower, your why power. Core motivation. The access point to your why power is through your core values, which define both who you are and what you stand for. Your core values are your internal compass, your guiding beacon, your personal GPS. They act as the filter through which you run all of life's demands, requests, and temptations, making sure they're leading you toward your intended destination. Getting your core values defined and properly calibrated is one of the most important steps in redirecting your life toward your grandest vision. If you haven't already clearly defined your values, you may find yourself making choices that conflict with what you want. If, for example, honesty is a big thing for you, but you hang out with liars, there's a conflict. When your actions conflict with your values, you'll end up unhappy, frustrated, and despondent. In fact, psychologists tell us that nothing creates more stress than when our actions and behaviors aren't congruent with our values. Defining your core values also helps make life simpler and more efficient. Decision-making is also easier when you are certain of your core values. When faced with a choice, ask yourself, does this align with my core values? If it does, do it. If not, don't, and don't look back. All fretting and indecision are eliminated. To identify your core values, use the Core Values Assessment Sheet on page 167 or download www.thecompoundeffect.com/free. Find your fight. People are either motivated by something they want or something they don't want. Love is a powerfully motivating force, but so is hate. Contrary to social correctness, it can be good to hate. Hate disease, hate injustice, hate ignorance, hate complacency, and so on. Sometimes identifying an enemy lights your fire. Some of my greatest motivation, determination, and dog persistence came when I had an enemy to fight. In history, the most transformational stories and political revolutions came about as a result of fighting an enemy. David had Goliath. America had the British. Luke had Darth Vader. Rocky had Apollo Creed. 20-somethings have the man. Rush Limbaugh has the liberals. Lance Armstrong has cancer. Apple has Microsoft. Microsoft has Apple. We could go on, but you get the point. Enemies give us a reason to stand tall with courage. Having to fight challenges your skills, your character, and your resolve. It forces you to assess and exercise your talents and abilities. Without a motivating fight, we can become fat and lazy. We lose our strength and purpose. Some of my mentorship clients worry that their why power derives from less than noble goals. They feel guilty for wanting to prove the naysayers wrong, or wanting to get back at the person who said they'd never amount to anything, or beat the competition, or finally one up a sibling who always dominated them. But really, it doesn't matter what the motivation is, as long as it is legal and moral. You don't have to be motivated for great humanitarian reasons. What matters is that you feel fully motivated. Sometimes that motivation can help you use a powerfully negative emotion or experience to create an even more powerful and successful end. This is certainly true of one of history's most celebrated football coaches, Pete Carroll. When we featured Carroll in Success magazine in September of 2008, he explained his early motivation like this. When I grew up, I was a little dink. I couldn't do much because I was just too small. It took me a couple years to get in a place where I could be competitive. All that time, I was living with the fact that I was much better and I needed to fight to prove it. I was frustrated because I knew I could be special. Carroll's need to fight ultimately brought out his greatness. Our March 2010 issue of Success magazine featured an interview with acclaimed actor Anthony Hopkins. I was surprised to learn that his extraordinary talent and determination blossomed from anger. Hopkins admitted to being a horrible student, burdened with dyslexia and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder before such diagnoses existed. He was shackled with the label problem child. I was a source of worry for my parents, Hopkins revealed. I had no apparent future because schooling and education were important, but I didn't seem to have the ability to grasp what was being taught to me. My cousins were all brilliant. I felt resentful and rejected by a whole society and was very depressed. Hopkins harnessed his anger. At first, it propelled him to fight to achieve success outside of academics or athletics. He discovered he had a glimmer of talent in acting. So, he used his anger toward the belittling labels he'd been given to fuel his commitment to the craft of acting. Today, Hopkins is considered one of the greatest actors alive. As a result of the fame and fortune he's acquired, Hopkins has been able to help countless people in the fight to recover from substance abuse, in addition to supporting important environmental work. Though initially it wasn't grounded in a noble cause, his fight was clearly worthwhile. We can all make powerful choices. We can all take back control by not blaming chance, fate, or anyone else for our outcomes. It's within our ability to cause everything to change. Rather than letting past hurtful experiences sap our energy and sabotage our success, we can use them to fuel positive, constructive change. Goals. As I mentioned before, the compound effect is always working and it will always take you somewhere. The question is, where? You can harness this relentless force and have it carry you to new heights. But you must know where. You want to go. What goals, dreams, and destinations do you desire? When I attended the funeral of Paul J. Meyer, another mentor of mine, I was reminded of the richness and diversity of his life. He achieved, experienced, and contributed more than dozens of people combined. His obituary made me reassess the quantity and size of the goals I set for myself. If Paul were here, he would tell us, if you're not making the progress that you would like to make and are capable of making, it is simply because your goals are not clearly defined. One of Paul's most memorable quotes reminds us of the importance of goals. Whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon, must inevitably come to pass. The one skill most responsible for the abundance in my life is learning how to effectively set and achieve goals. Something almost magical happens when you organize and focus your creative power on a well-defined target. I've seen this time and again. The highest achievers in the world have all succeeded because they mapped out their visions. The person who has a clear, compelling, and white-hot burning why will always defeat even the best of the best at doing the how. To figure out where you might need to add to or adjust your goals, take the life assessment on page 168 or download www.thecompoundeffect.com/free. How goal setting actually works, the mystery. Secret revealed. You only see, experience, and get what you look for. If you don't know what to look for, you certainly won't get it. By our very nature, we are goal-seeking creatures. Our brain is always trying to align our outer world with what we're seeing and expecting in our inner world. So, when you instruct your brain to look for the things you want, you will begin to see them. In fact, the object of your desire has probably always existed around you, but your mind and eyes weren't open to seeing it. In reality, this is how the law of attraction really works. It is not the mysterious, esoteric voodoo it sometimes sounds like. It's far simpler and more practical than that. We are bombarded with billions of sensory, visual, audio, physical bites of information each day. To keep ourselves from going insane, we ignore 99.9% of them, only really seeing, hearing, or experiencing those upon which our mind focuses. This is why, when you think something, it appears that you are miraculously drawing it into your life. In reality, you're now just seeing what was already there. You are truly attracting it into your life. It wasn't there before or accessible to you until your thoughts focused and directed your mind to see it. Make sense? This isn't mysterious at all. It's in fact quite logical. Now, With this new perception, whatever your mind is thinking internally is what it will focus on and all of a sudden see within that 99.9% of remaining space. Here's a well-worn example because it's so true. In shopping for or buying a new car, you suddenly start to see that model and make everywhere, right? It seems like there are tons of them on the streets all of a sudden when they weren't there yesterday. But is that realistic? Of course not. They were there all along, but you weren't paying attention to them. Thus, they didn't really exist to you until you gave them your attention. When you define your goals, you give your brain something new to look for and focus on. It's as if you're giving your mind a new set of eyes from which to see all the people, circumstances, conversations, resources, ideas, and creativity surrounding you. With this new perspective and inner itinerary, your mind proceeds to match up on the outside what you want most on the inside, your goal. It's that simple. The difference in how you experience the world and draw ideas, people, and opportunities into your life after you have clearly defined your goals is profound. In one of my interviews with Brian Tracy, he put it this way: top people have very clear goals. They know who they are and they know what they want. They write it down and they make plans for its accomplishment. Unsuccessful people carry their goals around in their head like marbles rattling around in a can. And we say a goal that is not in writing is merely a fantasy. And everybody has fantasies, but those fantasies are like bullets with no powder in the cartridge. People go through life shooting blanks without written goals, and that's the starting point. I suggest that you take some time today to make a list of your most important goals. I recommend considering goals in all aspects of your life, not just for your business or finances. Be wary of the high price of putting too much focus on any single aspect of your life to the exclusion of everything else. Go for whole life success. Balance in all the aspects of life that are important to you: business, finances, health and well-being, spirituality, family and relationships, and lifestyle. The system I have used has now been made available to the public in the program Living Your Best Year Ever, a proven system for achieving big goals. www.success.com/bestyearever. Available. Who you have to become. At. When most people set out to achieve new goals, they ask, okay, I have my goal. Now what do I need to do to get it? It's not a bad question, but it's not the first question that needs to be addressed either. The question we should be asking ourselves is, who do I need to become? You probably know some people who seem to do all the right things, but still don't produce the results they want, right? Why not? One thing Jim Rohn taught me is, if you want to have more, you have to become more. Success is not something you pursue. What you pursue will elude you. It could be like trying to chase butterflies. Success is something you attract by the person you become. When I understood that philosophy, wow, it revolutionized my life and personal growth. When I was single and ready to find my mate and get married, I made a long list of traits I desired in the perfect woman for me. I filled more than 40 pages of a journal, front and back, describing her in great detail, her personality, character, key attributes, attitudes, and philosophies about life, even what kind of family she'd come from, including her culture and physical makeup, down to the texture of her hair. I wrote in depth what our life would be like and what we'd do together. If I had then asked, what do I have to do to find and get this girl? I might still be on that butterfly chase. Instead, I looked back at the list and considered whether or not I embodied those same attributes myself. Did I have the very qualities I was expecting in her? I asked myself, what kind of man would a woman like this be looking for? Who do I need to become to be attractive to a woman of this substance? I filled 40 more pages describing all the attributes, qualities, behaviors, attitudes, and characteristics I needed to become myself. Then I want to work on becoming and achieving those qualities. Guess what? It worked. As if she were peeled off the pages of my journal and appeared in front of me. My wife, Georgia, is exactly what I described and asked for, in almost eerie detail. The key was my getting clear on who I'd have to be to attract and keep a woman of her quality, and then doing the work to achieve that. To identify bad habits and needed new habits essential to becoming and achieving what you want, complete the habit assessment sheet. On page 169, or download www.thecompoundeffect.com/free. Behave yourself. All right, let's map out your process for achieving the goals you've decided upon. This is the doing process, or in some cases, the stop doing process. What stands between you and your goal is your behavior. Do you need to stop doing anything so the compound effect isn't taking you into a downward spiral? Similarly, what do you need to start doing to change your trajectory so that it's headed in the most beneficial direction? In other words, what habits and behaviors do you need to subtract from and add to your life? Your life comes down to this formula. That's why it's imperative to figure out which behaviors are blocking the path that leads to your goal and which behaviors will help you accomplish your goal. You may think you've got a handle on all your bad habits, but I'd bet good money you're wrong. Again, that's why tracking is so effective. I mean, honestly, do you know how many hours of TV you really watch every day? How many hours do you spend tuned to news channels or keeping up with the goals and accomplishments of others on the sports or style networks? Do you know how many cans of soda you drink? Or how many hours you spend doing non-essential work on the computer, Facebook, reading online gossip, etc.? As I emphasized in the previous chapter, your first job is to become aware of how you're behaving. Where have you fallen asleep on a job and developed an unconscious bad habit that's leading you astray? Not long ago, a successful executive with whom I serve on a nonprofit board hired me to mentor him on improving his productivity. He was doing well, but knew he could optimize his time and output further with some coaching. I had him track his activities for a week, and I noticed something I see too often. Spend an incredible amount of time reviewing the news. 45 minutes in the morning reading the newspaper, another 30 minutes listening to news on his morning commute, and an equal amount of time tuning in again on his drive back home. During his workday, he'd check Yahoo News several times, spending at least 20 minutes in total. When he got home, he'd catch the last 15 minutes of the local news while greeting his family. Then he'd catch up on 30 minutes of sports news and 30 minutes of the 10 o'clock news before going to bed. In total, he was spending 3.5 hours with the news each day. This man wasn't an economist or a commodities trader or in any profession that lived or died by the latest news. The time he spent with the paper and news programs on radio and TV greatly exceeded what he needed to be a knowledgeable voter and contributing member of society, or even to enhance his own personal interests. In fact, he was getting very little valuable information. Through his programming choices, or rather, his lack of choices. So why did he spend nearly 4 hours a day consuming it? It was a habit. I suggested he keep his TV and radio off, cancel his newspaper subscription, and set up an RSS feeder so he could select and receive only the news he deemed important for his business and personal interests. Doing so immediately cleared out 95% of the mind-cluttering and time-sucking noise. He could now review all that mattered to him in less than 20 minutes a day. This left the 45 minutes in the morning, his commute time, and that hour in the evening for productive activities. Exercise, listening to instructional and inspirational material, reading, planning, preparing, and spending quality time with his family. He tells me he's never felt less stressed. Constant negative news has a tendency to make you anxious and more inspired and focused than he does now. One small, simple change in habit, one giant leap forward in balance and productivity. Okay, Now it's your turn. Get out your little notebook and write out your top 3 goals. Now, make a list of the bad habits that might be sabotaging your progress in each area. Write down every one. Habits and behaviors never lie. If there's a discrepancy between what you say and what you do, I'm going to believe what you do every time. If you tell me you want to be healthy, but you've got Doritos dust on your fingers, I'm believing the Doritos. If you say self-improvement is a priority, but you spend more time with your Xbox than at the library, I'm believing the Xbox. If you say you're a dedicated professional, but you show up late and unprepared, your behavior rats you out every time. You say your family is your top priority, but if they don't appear on your busy calendar, they aren't, really. Look at the list of bad habits you just made. That's the truth about who you are. Now you get to decide whether that's okay or if you want to change. Next, add to that list all the habits you need to adopt that, practiced and compounded over time, will result in you gloriously achieving your goals. Making this list isn't about wasting energy by getting judgmental and regretful. It's about taking a clear-headed look at what you want to improve. I'm not going to leave you there, however. Let's uproot those sabotaging bad habits and plant new, positive, and healthy ones in their place. Game changers. 5 strategies for eliminating bad habits. Your habits are learned. Therefore, they can be unlearned. If you want to sail your life in a new direction, you have to first pick up the anchors of bad habits that have been weighing you down. The key is to make your why power so strong that it overwhelms your urges for instant gratification. And for that, you need a new game plan. The following are my all-time favorite game changers. 1. Identify your triggers. Look at your list of bad habits. For each one you've written down, identify what triggers it. Figure out what I call the big 4s, the who, the what, the where, and the when underlying each bad behavior. For example, are you more likely to drink too much when you're with certain people? Is there a particular time of day when you just have to have something sweet? What emotions tend to provoke your worst habits? Stress, fatigue, anger, nervousness, boredom? When do you experience those emotions? Who are you with? Where are you? Or what are you doing? What situations prompt your bad habits to surface? Getting in your car, the time before performance reviews, visits with your in-laws. Conferences? Social settings? Feeling physically insecure? Deadlines? Take a closer look at your routines. What do you typically say when you wake up? When you're on a coffee or lunch break? When you've gotten home from a long day? Again, get out your notebook or use the Bad Habit Killer worksheet here, which you can also download for free at thecompoundeffect.com/free. And write down your triggers. This simple action alone increases your awareness exponentially. But, of course, this isn't the whole enchilada, because as we've discussed, increasing your awareness of a bad habit isn't enough to break it. 2. Clean house. Get to scrub in, and I mean this literally and figuratively. If you want to stop drinking alcohol, remove every drop of it from your house, and your vacation house if you have one. Get rid of the glasses, any fancy utensils or doodads you use when you drink, and those decorative olives too. If you want to stop drinking coffee, heave the coffee maker and give that bag of gourmet grounds to a sleepy neighbor. If you're trying to curb your spending, take an evening and cancel every catalog or retail offer that flies in through your mailbox or your inbox, so you won't even need to muster the discipline to walk it from the front door to the recycle bin. If you want to eat more healthfully, clean your cupboards of all the crap, stop buying the junk food, and stop buying into the argument that it's not fair to deny the other people in your family junk food just because you don't want it in your life. Trust me, everyone in your family is better off without it. Don't bring it into the house, period. Get rid of whatever enables your bad habits. 3. Swap it. Look again at your list of bad habits. How can you alter them so that they're not as harmful? Can you replace them with healthier habits or drop kick them altogether? as in for good. Anyone who knows me knows that I love something sweet after a meal. If there is ice cream in the house, the something sweet turns into a triple scoop banana split with all the fixings, 1,255 calories. Instead, I replace that bad habit with 2 Hershey's Kisses, 50 calories. I'm still able to satisfy the sweet tooth without having to spend the extra hour on the treadmill just to get back to even. My sister-in-law started a habit of eating crunchy and salty junk food when she watched TV. She crunched through a whole bag of tortilla chips with little actual awareness. Then she realized that what she really enjoyed was the crunchy sensation in her mouth. She decided to replace her bad habit with crunching on carrot and celery sticks and raw broccoli spears. She got the same joyful sensation, and her EFTA recommended vegetable servings at the same time. A guy who used to work for me had a habit of drinking 8 to 10 Diet Cokes a day. That's a bad habit. I suggested he replace them with low sodium, carbonated water, adding fresh lemon, lime, or oranges. He did this for about a month before realizing he didn't need the carbonation at all and switched to just plain water. Play with this and see what behaviors you can replace, delete, or swap out. 4. Ease in. I live near the Pacific Ocean. Whenever I get in the water, I get my ankles acclimated first, then walking up to my knees, then it's my waist and chest before taking the plunge. Some people just run and dive in and get it over with. Good for them. Not me. I like to ease my way in, probably residual trauma from my childhood, as you'll see in the next strategy. For some of your long-standing and deep-rooted habits, it may be more effective to take small steps to ease into unwinding them. You may have spent decades repeating, cementing, and fortifying those habits, so it could be wise to give yourself some time to unravel them, one step at a time. A few years ago, my wife's doctor required she cut out caffeine from her diet for several months. We both love our coffee, so if she was going to have to suffer, I decided it was only fair that we do it together. We first went to 50-50, 50% decaffeinated and 50% regular for a week. Then 100% decaf for another week. Then Earl Grey decaf tea for a week, followed by decaf green tea. It took us a month to get there, but we didn't suffer even a moment of caffeine withdrawal. No headaches, no sleepiness, no brain fog, no nothing. However, if we had gone cold turkey, well, I shiver at the thought. 5. Or jump in. Not everyone is wired the same way. Some researchers have found that it can be paradoxically easier for people to make lifestyle changes if they change a great many bad habits at once. For example, pioneering cardiologist Dr. Dean Ornish found he could reverse people's advanced heart disease without medication or surgery with dramatic lifestyle changes. He discovered they often found it easier to say goodbye to almost all their bad habits at once. He enrolled them in a training session where he substituted a very low-fat diet for their fat and cholesterol-rich fare. The program included exercise, getting them off their couches and walking or jogging, as well as stress reduction techniques and other heart-healthy habits. Amazingly, in less than a month, these patients learned to let go of a lifetime of bad habits and embrace new ones, and they went on to experience dramatic health benefits after a year as a result. Personally, I find this to be the exception, not the rule, but you'll have to figure out the strategy that works best for you. When I was a kid, my family camped at a little-known spot called Lake Rollins. The lake, situated not far from the Sierras in Northern California, is fed from glaciers that melt from atop the mountains of Lake Tahoe. The water's ridiculously cold. Every day we were there, my dad insisted that I water ski in the polar pond. All day, I would be quietly anxious about the dreaded call to go in. I loved to water ski. I just hated getting in the water. A slight conflict of interest, because of course, there was no separating one from the other. Dad made sure that I never missed my turn, sometimes by actually physically throwing me in. After a dozen or so excruciating seconds of near hypothermia, I always found the water refreshing and rejuvenating. My anticipation of getting in the water was actually worse than the reality of just jumping in. Once my body acclimated, water skiing was a blast. And yet, I went through this cycle of dread and relief each and every time. That experience isn't unlike that of suddenly dropping or changing a bad habit. For sure, while it can feel excruciating or at least quite uncomfortable. But just as the body adjusts to a changing environment through a process called homeostasis, we have a similar homeostatic ability to adjust to unfamiliar behavior changes. And usually, we can regulate ourselves physiologically and psychologically to the new circumstances quite quickly. Sometimes waiting in just won't do. Sometimes you really do have to jump in. I want you to ask yourself now, where can I start slow and hold myself? Accountable. And where do I need to take that bigger leap? Where have I been avoiding pain or discomfort? Well, I know deep down that I'll adapt in no time if I just go for it. One of my former partners has a brother who is a beer guzzling, bar brawling, life of the party alcoholic. He drank at lunch, with dinner, after dinner, and all weekend long. One day, he was at a wedding for a former college roommate when he saw his friend's brother, who was 10 years older than both of them, but looked 10 years younger. He watched the man dance, laugh, and play during the wedding, exuding a vitality he hadn't felt in many years. He made a decision on the spot that he would never touch a drop of alcohol again. Cold turkey, that was it, never again. And he hasn't in more than 6 years. When it comes to changing bad habits at home, I'm a toe dipper. But in my professional life, I find that taking the big plunge is far more effective. Whether committing to a new business or dealing with potential new clients, partners, or investors, toe dipping usually doesn't cut it. Each time, I think of Lake Rollins and know it will be painful at first, but I remember that within little time, it will be exhilarating and well worth the temporary discomfort. Run a vice check. I'm not suggesting you cut out every bad thing in your life. Most everything is good in moderation. But how can you tell whether a bad habit is becoming the boss of you? I believe in testing my vices. Every so often I go on a vice fast. I pick one vice and check to be sure I'm still the alpha dog in our relationship. My vices are coffee, ice cream, wine, and movies. I already told you about my ice cream obsession. When it comes to wine, I want to be sure I'm enjoying a glass and celebrating the day, not drowning a bad mood. About every 3 months, I pick one vice and abstain for 30 days. This probably stems from my Catholic Lent upbringing. I love proving to myself that I'm still in charge. Try this yourself. Pick a vice, something you do in moderation, but you know doesn't contribute to your highest good, and take yourself on a 30-day wagon run. If you find it seriously difficult to abstain for those 30 days, you may have found a habit worth cutting out of your life. Game changers. 6 techniques for installing good habits. Now that we have helped you eliminate the bad habits that are taking you in the wrong direction, we need to create new choices, behaviors, and ultimately habits that will finally take you in the direction of your grandest desires. Eliminating a bad habit means removing something from your routine. Installing a new, more productive habit requires an entirely different skill set. You're planting the tree, watering it, fertilizing it, and making sure it's properly rooted. Doing so takes effort, time, and practice. Here are my favorite techniques for putting good habits in place. Leadership expert John C. Maxwell said, "You will never change your life until you change something you do daily." The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. According to research, it takes 300 instances of positive reinforcement to turn a new habit into an unconscious practice. That's almost a year of daily practice. Fortunately, as we talked about earlier, we know we've got a much better chance of cementing a new habit into our lives after 3 weeks of diligent focus. That means that if we bring special attention to a new habit daily for the first 3 weeks, we have a far better chance of making it a lifelong practice. The truth is, you can change a habit in a second or you can still be trying to break it after 10 long years. The first time you touched a hot stove, you instantly knew you'd never make that habit. The shock and pain was so intense that it forever changed your awareness. You knew you'd be conscious for the rest of your life around hot stoves. The key is staying aware. If you really want to maintain a good habit, make sure you pay attention to it at least once a day, and you're far more likely to succeed. 1. Set yourself up to succeed. Any new habit has to work inside your life and lifestyle. If you join a gym that's 30 miles away, you won't go. If you're a night owl, but the gym closes at 6 p.m., it won't work for you. Your gym must be close and convenient and fit into your schedule. If you want to lose weight and eat healthier, make sure your fridge and pantry are stocked with healthy options. Want to make sure you don't binge on vending machine snacks when you get midday hunger pangs? Keep nuts and healthy snacks in your desk drawer. The easiest thing to grab when you're hungry is empty carbs. One strategy one use is to have protein on hand. I cook up a bunch of chicken on Sunday and package it and have it ready for the week. One of my most distracting and destructive habits is my email addiction. Seriously, this is no laughing matter. I can lose hours of focus every day with the massive amounts of email flooding my inbox if I'm not vigilant about staying organized and focused. To set up the discipline of my new habit of only checking email 3 times a day, I turn off all alarms, all automatic receive functions, and shut the program down when I'm not in one of those 3 windows of allocated time. I have to build the walls around that time vortex, lest I keep falling in all day. 2. Think addition, not subtraction. When I interviewed Montel Williams for Success, he told me about the strict diet he maintains because of the disease that afflicts him, multiple sclerosis. Montel has adopted something called the add-in principle, and I think it's a wildly effective tool for anyone with any goal. It's not so much what you attempt to take out of your diet, he explained to me. It's what you put in instead. This has become his analogy for life. Instead of thinking that he has to deprive himself or take something out of his diet, e.g., I can't eat a hamburger, chocolate, or dairy, he thinks about what he can have instead, e.g., today I'm going to have a salad and steamed vegetables and fresh figs. He fills his focus and his belly with what he can have, so he no longer has attention or hunger for what he can't. Instead of focusing on what he has to sacrifice, Montel thinks about what he gets to add in. The result is a lot more powerful. A friend of mine wanted to break his bad habit of wasting too much time watching TV. To help out, I asked him what he'd like to do with 3 hours of free time if he had it. He said he would play with his kids more. I also asked him to pick a hobby he'd always wanted to explore. His choice was photography. A total techie, he went out and got all this high-tech editing equipment, which he happily toted along on more family outings so he could take great photos of his kids. Then he'd spend hours in the evening editing and putting together slideshows and photo albums for the whole family to enjoy. They ended up spending time together, laughing and remembering how much fun they'd had. Because he was so focused on his kids and photography, he no longer had the time nor the desire to sit around and watch TV at night. He realized he'd been zoning out on it because it was an easy mental escape from his workday. By replacing TV viewing with his new habit of playing games with his kids and working on his photography hobby, he discovered passions with far more power and far bigger payoffs. What can you choose to add in so you can enrich your life experience? 3. Go for a PDA, public display of accountability. Picture any public official taking the oath of office. I do solemnly swear. And then comes the speech on how she'll turn her campaign promises into boots-in-the-ground realities. Once she puts it out there on the public record, she knows that she'll be held responsible for any action that rolls back on her promises and praised for any progress toward her goals. Want to cement that new habit? Get Big Brother to watch you. It's never been easier with all the social media available. I heard about one woman who decided to get control of her finances by blogging about every penny she spends every day. She's got her family, friends, and plenty of colleagues following her spending habits. And as a result of the many eyes of scrutiny, she's become far more responsible and disciplined in her finances. I once helped a coworker quit smoking by telling everyone at the company, "Listen up, Zelda's decided to stop smoking. Isn't that great?" She just smoked her last cigarette. I then placed a huge wall calendar on the outside of her cubicle. Every day she didn't smoke, Zelda got to draw a big fat red X on the calendar. Coworkers took notice and started to cheer her on, and the parade of big red X's started to fill up the chart, which took on a life of its own. Zelda didn't want to quit on that chart, quit on her coworkers, or quit on herself. But she did quit smoking. Tell your family. Tell your friends. Tell Facebook and Twitter. Get the word out that there's a new sheriff in town and you're in charge. 4. Find a success buddy. There are few things as powerful as two people locked arm and arm marching toward the same goal. To up your chances of success, get a success buddy, someone who will keep you accountable as you submit your new habit while you return the favor. I, for example, have what I call a peak performance partner. Every Friday at 11 a.m. sharp, we have a 30-minute call during which we trade our wins, losses, fixes, ahas, and solicit the needed feedback and hold each other accountable. You might seek out a success buddy for regular walks, runs, or dates at the gym, or to meet to discuss and trade personal development books. 5. Competition and camaraderie. There's nothing like a friendly contest to whet your competitive spirit and immerse yourself in a new habit with a bang. Dr. Mehmet Oz once told me in an interview, if people would just walk 1,000 more steps per day, they would change their lives. Video Plus, the parent company for success, held a step competition using shoe pedometers to count steps. Employees organized into teams and competed to see which team could accumulate the most steps. It was amazing to me that people who didn't previously exercise for their own health or benefits suddenly started walking 4, 5, or 6 miles a day. At lunch, they walked in the parking lot. If they knew they had a conference call, suddenly they were out doing it on their cell phones while they walked. Because of the competition, they found ways to increase their activity. Everyone's steps were tracked, and the whole office could see who was slacking off and who was stepping up. People's step tallies increased every day. Yet as soon as the competition was over, I was fascinated to observe that the step count completely dropped off the cliff by more than 60% just 1 month after the competition. When the competition was reorganized again, the step count shot right back up. All it took was a little competition to keep people's engines revved, and they got a wonderful sense of community and shared experience and camaraderie in the bargain. What kind of friendly competition can you organize with your friends, colleagues, or teammates? How can you inject fun rivalry and a competitive spirit into your new habit? 6. Celebrate. All work and no play make Jack a dull boy, and it's a recipe for backsliding. There should be a time to celebrate, to enjoy some of the fruits of your victories along the way. You can't go through this thing sacrificing yourself with no benefit. You got to find little rewards to give yourself every month, every week, every day. Even something small to acknowledge that you've held yourself to a new behavior. Maybe time to yourself to take a walk, relax in the bath, or read something just for fun. For bigger milestones, book a massage or have dinner at your favorite restaurant. And promise yourself a nice big pot of gold when you reach the end of the rainbow. Change is hard. Yippee! There's a one thing that 99% of failures and successful folks have in common. They all hate doing the same things. The difference is successful people do them anyway. Change is hard. That's why people don't transform their bad habits, and why so many people end up unhappy and unhealthy. What excites me about this reality, however, is that if change were easy and everyone were doing it, it would be much more difficult for you and me to stand out and become an extraordinary success. Ordinary is easy. Extraordinary is what will separate you from the crowd. Personally, I'm always happy when something is hard. Why? Because I know that most people won't do what it takes. Therefore, it will be easier for me to step in front of the pack and take the lead. I love what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said so eloquently. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge. When you press on despite difficulty, tedium, and hardship, that's when you earn your improvement and gain strides on the competition. If it's hard, awkward, or tedious, so be it. Just do it and keep doing it, and the magic of the compound effect will reward you handsomely. Be patient. When it comes to breaking old bad habits and starting new ones, remember to be patient with yourself. If you spent 20, 30, or 40 years or more repeating the behaviors you're now trying to change, you've got to expect it's going to take time and effort before you see lasting results. Science shows that patterns of thoughts and actions repeated many times create what's called a neurosignature or a brain groove, or a series of interconnected neurons that carry the thought patterns of a particular habit. Attention feeds the habit. When we give our attention to a habit, we activate the brain groove, releasing the thoughts, desires, and actions related to that habit. Luckily, our brains are malleable. If we stop giving attention to the bad habits, those grooves weaken. When we form new habits, we drive new grooves deeper with each repetition, eventually overpowering the previous ones. Creating new habits and burning new grooves into your brain will take time. Be patient with yourself. If you fall off the wagon, brush yourself off, not beat yourself up and get back on. No problem. We all stumble. Just go again and try another strategy. Reinforce your commitment and consistency. When you press on, you will receive huge payoffs. Speaking of payoffs, the next chapter is where we really start breaking away from the herd, where the multiplying effect really takes shape. With all the disciplined effort you've applied from the fundamentals of the first 3 chapters, here's where you get rewarded big time. Put the compound effect to work for you. Summary action steps. Identify your 3 best habits, those that support your most important goal. Identify your 3 bad habits that take you off course from your most important goal. Identify 3 new habits you need to develop to put you on track toward your most important goal.